Hey everybody, welcome to PixelBlips October Spooktacular. Last time we talked about Resident Evil. Feel free to watch that one before you watch this one. This time we're talking about
Silent Hill.
Silent Hill.
So
we talked last time about I played all the Resident Evil games in one summer, and then at the end of that summer, I was like, I need more. And he was like, well, you just played Resident Evil 1. Here's Silent Hill. And I played the first Silent Hill. It was so creepy I couldn't play it anymore.
yeah, and that's part of the thing with those games is they are not an action game at all. They are puzzles and run the hell away from the bad guy.
Like if you see a monster coming at you, you cannot fight it.
I mean, yeah, you get a gun or a
like
sword or a bat or something, but it really isn't going to do anything more than just piss the monster off and make it chase you faster.
I think the first one where I felt like you were on an equal footing with the monster was Silent Hill Origins on the PSP, which is technically Silent Hill 5.
Yeah. I mean, I've not played a lot of Silent Hill games, but I had to stop playing 2 because nobody was at the house.
Yep.
And I was playing it on a big ass TV with my original. I was just playing like the Xbox version or whatever. It scared the crap.
There have only been like a handful of games that I have stopped playing because oh my god, I can't go on. There's a scene in Code Veronica, Resident Evil Code Veronica, where you're watching this family 8mm family movie, and it's just so overridingly creepy that I was like, I don't want to see. I gotta stop. You guys are good.
But
Silent Hill 3 has a lot of those moments.
Oh yeah, well, and Silent Hill 3 is the one where it's the girl.
It's the girl, and I think that's a good reason.
Is her name Claire?
Heather.
Heather. Okay.
And I think that's one of the reasons Silent Hill 3 is as successful as it is unlike Silent Hill 1, Silent Hill 2, the Silent Hills that have come after it, being the teenage girl is very frightening because I think society-wise, we have just a view of
teenage girls as
being weak, need to be protected.
Yeah, something like that.
So you're even more, in a game series where you're adverse to confrontation with the bad guys, you're even more adverse to it.
Yeah. And it's
and I remember the scene in the subway where like if you fall on the tracks, it's a totally abandoned subway system. It hasn't been used ever in years. If you fall on the tracks, the train shows up out of nowhere and just wipes you out. And I just remember going,
what the hell?
Because it was like that. And I was like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, there's stuff like that in other games, but it's like this game and these games are, I want to say if Resident Evil is becoming the antithesis of what survival horror is, this is exactly what survival horror needs to be. Is you
and the problem with the Silent Hill
environment, you have very little, like almost no resources at all.
Yeah, and then no recourse against the things coming at you.
Yeah, and you can't do anything. Like it is run away or die and start
over. The best thing about it is, in the first game you have a walkie-talkie.
And whenever a monster comes by, you start hearing static and stuff, correct? Yeah.
Hearing that static, I would want to stop playing the game. It was so adverse. My skin would crawl. I'm like, something bad is going to happen. It is a wonderful video game way that they have adapted that you're in the movie theater, the girl's in the house with the serial killer, and she's going to open the door to the room where the serial killer is.
They have like the build-up music.
The build-up dead body, and you're just like, don't go in there! That is the only time I've ever felt that like really translated well into a video game.
I believe the radio or something like that is in the first few games where you have like a walkie-talkie or
I think it's one of the hallmarks of the series.
Yeah,
that and the flashlight.
Yeah, and having that flashlight doesn't really good anyway. But
yeah,
it's just one of those creepy movies.
The best
game and movie series is that it's like. These are horror movies, but not because they're slasher films or slasher games.
They're gory, but that's not why they're scary.
No.
The one that uses the flashlight the best that I think you might need to look up is the Wii version of Shattered Memories, which is a retelling of the first game. Because when you know how you naturally but you know how you naturally when you're holding the Wiimote it kind of dips and moves around and everything. Seeing that on screen is really frightening because you have to kind of be like, I'm not moving my arm. Like, let me get a vice thing set up here.
Just plant your arm on a table.
Yeah, just
get a stool.
Yeah.
The Silent Hill series was when I first played it. I think it was in
I think the best thing that Silent Hill does is, unlike Resident Evil and some other series, there's only one series I can think of that does this even better, is you know how there's safe rooms in all of those series? There's no safe room in Silent Hill.
No.
Even when you're in the fog world, you are effed.
Yeah, you are in danger. There's always something coming after you. There's no place where you can just hide and hunker down.
Yeah.
It is, you are always on the run from something. You will never, ever
Even
be safe until you have figured out.
Yeah, Silent Hill Origins, when you go into the save rooms, are also rooms where like the other world can just come through.
Mm-hmm.
You can pop in and out of them. You still feel like something is going to get you in the save room.
Well, and that's the hallmark of a great survival game, right? Or a great horror game is you never know when you're going to be attacked. You never know when something bad is going to happen to your character. And it may suck that your save is going to get not wiped, but you'll die and then you have to replay all that. But then at least you know what's coming next time.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, and the translation to film for these games is
the first one's
movie was
good.
Really, really, really good. Like
First one I really liked.
And Sean Bean is.
The first one gave me the that heebie-jeebie moment, that I need to look away from the screen. Sort of spoiler, there's a scene where one of the characters is in an oxygen tent, and when I was born, I spent a lot of my time in an oxygen tent. And it's an old style oxygen tent, so there's like a little slit where you can look out and everything else you can't see, like a little window. And the demon comes to the window and it just has these unblinking, bloodshot, yellowed eyes. And it's just staring at you, and like the film's all warped at that point. And the little girl raises her burnt hand up and touches it, and then you see the demon hand come touch on top of it, and then the disease, the otherworld disease that permeates the Silent Hill series, that rust and tetanus and everything, and like dried blood and guts, and just starts seeping out of it. I'm just like, in the movie theater, I was just like in my seat, like,
yeah. Those movies are super creepy.
The second one, not so much.
Well,
the second one has its moments of creepy, but the second one has a lot of problems.
Well, yeah, they retcon the story to make it more like the video games, because the first movie is similar to the game in that it uses not just a name, but like similar characters and stories.
Yeah, and the storyline it's kind of like the storyline from the first one mixed with the storyline from the second one.
Well, yeah, because you kind of have to do both.
It switched, like, yeah.
But you've got characters, like if you say Silent Hill, what's the first character that comes to mind?
Heather Mason, but that's because I like the third one. But you want me to say her dad?
No, I was gonna say Pyramid Head, but whatever.
Oh well.
Yeah, as far as
that's the other thing about Pyramid Head, about all the. So we talked about Resident Evil last time.
Yeah.
Better than any other survival horror series I can think of. Mm-hmm. The Silent Hill monsters, because they're all based on like guilt and like deep-seated horrible things.
Yeah.
Like Pyramid Head, the first time you meet him is doing something very indecent
to another monster.
And
I was reading up on some of this stuff, because it's been a while since I played a Silent Hill game. The creation of Pyramid Head, like the fact that he follows around the guy in 2, is like his manifestation of...
spoiler.
It's a game that's like a decade old. Anyway, spoilers, whatever. It's a manifestation of his guilt.
Yes.
And how he wants to be punished for what happened to his wife.
Yes.
And that guilt will follow you around.
So and then the monsters just grow out of this deep-seated horror conceit in all of the games.
Yeah.
And in very interesting and weird ways.
Those crazy looking nurses and stuff. Yeah.
The nurses is like the hallmark.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you say Silent Hill, you'll either get the nurse
or the Pyramid Head.
I don't even know that, like, the character names are irrelevant to me. Like, those are the monsters. Those are the things that everybody is freaking afraid of.
Like the bloody bunny.
Oh yeah. I think his name is either Robbie or Bobby the Bunny.
Yes.
And
he's a giant bunny suit, and he's got this horrible gore in his mouth, like he ate something.
But it's not blood. It's ketchup. He loves ketchup. Like they make that note in the game or in the movie.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it's not blood. It's ketchup. He loves ketchup.
But that monster grows out of that character's loss of innocence in childhood, which I was like, it's so great that they thought about this.
Yeah.
The other thing that really sets the Silent Hill series apart from all others is the music.
Oh yeah. How creepy that stuff is, just in general.
Like even in my head right now, I can hear it. Like when I got Silent Hill 3, which was back when I sold games back, when I sold it back, I stole the soundtrack out of it before I sold it back because I was like, I'm holding on to
I'm
this.
keeping the CD, but you can have the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and the puzzles in that game are not like it's not like an.
It's not like here's a square peg, here's a square hole, find the square key.
Yeah, it's like it's weird. Like you have to go looking through notes.
Yep.
I remember in 2, there's like this really early on. There's like this chest that you have to open to get something out of it. But you have to like figure out what the combination is, and it's not like there's a sheet of paper with the combination written on it. You have to figure it out from all these different little things that are hidden around the first area, and it's just. It's one of those games that makes you have to stop and think, but then you also have to just be like, I'm going to run away from you because you're big and scary.
You have to stop and think, but it doesn't give you that time.
Yeah, you do not have the time to stop and think.
The other game that not a lot of people talk about is Silent Hill 4: The Room.
Yeah, it's not very, I don't know. Like
it's different.
Yeah, it's not
it was
one
the
of those
first one that was different.
Well received, I guess.
Yeah, but the thing I like about The Room is the room is about a shut-in that can't get out of his apartment.
Yes.
And the horribleness of it that you don't want to leave. That like I felt shut in this guy's apartment. I felt like I knew every inch of it. And then every time something changed, whether it was a tear in the wallpaper or like a giant gaping hole to hell, I felt violated. I felt like it just made me so uncomfortable and scared and like, oh God, that anything could happen.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what those games are all about. It's like, this is the crazy stuff that can happen. These are, I mean, it's like a giant metaphor for fighting your demons. But it's.
But since the HD generation.
Yeah, the HD games. I've heard that the HD remakes are not that great.
The HD remakes aren't great.
Like they had like weird issues with getting the original voice actors for one of the games.
Yeah.
Because of like.
And the music for one of them.
Yeah.
Use samples.
Do all that.
And then the other thing is. The new games, Homecoming, Downpour, Shattered Memories, kind of, are having a hard time capturing that magic.
Yeah, well,
and that's because one of the art directors has left. The original producer's no longer on it. The music guy no longer works for it. Although the guy that does the music for it now is the dude that does that wrote the main theme to Dexter, which is one of the awesome things about that show.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason why games like Silent Hill and Resident Evil don't really play the way that we want them to is because they now have, and this is kind of the downside of having console generations and having these new systems come out where everything looks bigger and better, is they now have to focus on that a lot more.
Yeah, it has to sell a lot. Yeah,
and they have to make it look really good, because if it looked crappy, like, you know, I'm not gonna say that the PS1 games weren't on there that pushed its limits, but RE and you know, Silent Hill didn't really push.
And the fog is there because they couldn't render.
Yeah, because they couldn't render that far out. That's why that fog is there. But that's what made those games extra creepy. Was part of the hardware limitations was we have to make this world big, but we have to make it foggy so that we don't burn your PS1 up.
Yeah,
so,
and the same thing is having two consoles to launch with. Mm-hmm. Because Silent Hill normally didn't have to worry about selling that many units because they could just launch on the PlayStation or PlayStation 2, which had, you know, an install base of 100 million people. Yeah. And now they're kind of like, well, we have to make this pretty marketable because now we have to sell that many copies. Yeah.
Millions of copies.
Across two platforms we have to develop for semi-separately.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of series ran into that in this last generation.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and with the architecture being so different with the 360 and PS3.
But more so than Resident Evil. I can only think of one other survival horror franchise that I'm really excited to see what they do with in the new generation. And I hope they go back to it.
Yeah.
But Silent Hill is one of those ones that like I really want them to see. I really want them to go back to because I think if they get the writing down, they get the characters down, they can do a really successful job of it.
And that's the thing. Like they need to bring back that old super scary I'm gonna die feeling.
Yeah.
That seems to be missing from the last couple of games.
Yeah. And also the idea that the world that you're comfortable with is only one transition away from hell.
Yeah.
Like if they brought that back, like here's my pitch for Resident Evil.
Silent Hill 5?
Well, yeah, it would be Silent Hill 5. Yeah, it'd be the number 5. So here's my pitch for Silent Hill for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. So you and your wife are newly married, and you guys are on your honeymoon, and you're in a resort town. It's kind of like one of those, you know, kind of like what Silent Hill is supposed to be. And then you wake up and your wife's gone. And then the whole thing is you finding your wife.
Trying to find her.
So it's kind of a reboot of the series in the fact that it harkens back to 1 and what 1 set up, but also like go the extra yard. Like maybe that story, that setup is still good, and you can find a different way out of it.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds like a fairly solid
Like, you know, think about it. Yeah, think about if you had the start of The Last of Us, where you're kind of like you're going through the wedding ceremony.
Yeah.
And that's how you interact with everything. You can figure out the controls. That's your tutorial level. Is like that wedding ceremony?
You're in the groom's suite or whatever, messing around with stuff.
Yeah, and that's your wedding ceremony, and you have a couple of good character beats with the character that is your wife. So you actually care for her, and then you go to the honeymoon. And you happen to honeymoon in Silent Hill, which is never a good job.
No,
never a good idea. So we'll see you next week. We'll have 2 new topics to talk about.